morning, everyone. If you want to come a little closer, this is a really big room. Feel free to come in if you want to, no pressure. Through the session today, we are going to be using Microsoft Kaizala. So if you can take the opportunity to download it now, that will be really helpful because we're going to be demoing it and you're going to be participating in that demo as well. So you can find it in both the app stores, so you can just download it as we start. Cool. So to introduce myself, that's going to build. My name's Heather Gordon, and I'm the Product Marketing Director for Microsoft Kaizala. And I'm really excited to be here today with you, along with Patrick. Do you want to introduce yourself, Patrick?
Yeah, I am Microsoft MVP, and I am. I've created my company 8 years ago about how to empower people using the whole Office 365 toolsets.
Great, thank you. So we're a nice small group today, so it can be interactive. Feel free to ask questions as we go through. Just to set the scene in terms of the agenda, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start again with the intelligent workplace and just frame some of the things that Seth mentioned in the keynote yesterday. Then we're going to go through and I'm going to introduce Microsoft Kaizala to you with some of the announcements that we've recently made. We're going to give you a demo, which, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be participating in as well. And then we're going to go deeper into the product overview, as well as showing you some of the action plans in terms of what's next when you leave here. I'm going to start with this video, and hopefully it's going to play. So let's give it a go.
Philippine Airlines, we have been here for 77 years. We were the first airline in Asia. We transport millions of passengers every year, and we have around 8,000 employees.
An airline crew boarding.
What I'm currently doing is I'm helping them bring in technology, and we're starting with Microsoft Kaizala.
Philippines Airlines plus Microsoft 365, a smartphone.
Microsoft Kaizala is an app that you can easily integrate with other things.
It's a low bandwidth application. It uses less data, and it allows the cabin crew to go all around the world and do what they need to do.
Miguel Natividad.
We integrated it with our crewing system. Before, it was really old school. Someone would have to type it in.
Rosie Domingo.
An actual guy would have to go to their house. It's such a hassle.
A motorcycle courier.
Now, as soon as I save on that crewing system, it goes straight to the phone using Microsoft Kaizala. In the beginning, there were only 20% of the cabin crew who used it, but we just kept on adding features to it, and now we're almost at 100%, and it's not even been a year.
Camille Flores.
Our schedule is our life. Imagine having to worry about it every day. Now with Microsoft Kaizala, it has made our lives so much easier.
We get real-time information regarding changes in our schedule.
Pilot Jody Caballo.
That's pretty awesome for us.
We have thousands of employees around the world. We can send messages to all of them with one click, and it's safe and secure. The savings that it has brought is tremendous, but the life of our flight attendants, they say it's better because of Kaizala. But eventually, we would also like catering to use it. Security, safety, the possibilities are endless.
A flight takes off.
It gives me incredible pride to fly the flag carrier. There are people out there who ask us, who do you fly for? And I get to say, Philippine Airlines.
Crew members and staff pose, smile, and wave. Microsoft 365. Microsoft.
Great, so that's one of my favorite videos, and just to tell you what was happening with all the voiceovers that were popping in and out through the video, as we think about the inclusivity of making everyone be able to enjoy videos, there were voiceovers for elements that people who might be hard of hearing would be able to, visually impaired, would be able to actually follow through on the video. So this video has this in. Another video that I'll show a little later does not have that in. But Philippine Airlines has been one of our first Microsoft Kaizala customers that joined us on the journey. So I thought it would be great to start with that. So let's go to the intelligent workplace and just reframe some of the things that Seth had mentioned. Some of the things that he said that really struck a note with me is, number one, the demographics of the workplace is changing so significantly, and there's such a shift in how people are working in terms of the dispersed technology that everyone has, and also how dispersed the workforce really is out there. And the way we actually spend our time at work is so different to how we did it 5 years or even 10 years ago, where 80% of our time is really spent collaborating with one another. And that's not just people inside of your organization, but it's also people outside of your organization that you're collaborating with all the time. And as we think about the rise of social networking and how people are collaborating, we know that mobile is such a large component of how that is done today. But with that, we see that a lot of organizations are starting to use chat-based apps, consumer-based apps, which really leaves organizations at risk in terms of how they're managing their data and how data is actually leaving their organization. And it's really, really quite tricky for them to manage that. So as we go through today, you'll hopefully see some of the great benefits that we can help with. So with that movement of data, particularly on the mobile side, we can see that some of the risks that are coming to the forefront. We know that it's really expensive when there are data risks that are exposed within an organization. And it's imperative as these leaders are thinking about the intelligent workplace and they're thinking about, how do they, number one, empower their people to be able to work wherever they need to work, to be able to be inclusive with their entire workforce, whether they're in the office, out of the office, whether they're mobile only, whether they're desktop bound. These are the things that are really on the mind, I'm sure, of all of you in the room, as well as business leaders out there. So what we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, is 80% of these employees within your business are using those non-approved apps within the business just to get their job done. And that's likely because we haven't necessarily provided simple, easy, and integrated solutions for them to use. So this is where I really want to start introducing Microsoft Kaizala to everyone here. And I know that it might be new to some people in the room, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of a history lesson, a backdoor history lesson on how Kaizala actually came about. So it's not an acquisition that Microsoft made. We actually built this app ourselves out of India about two and a half years ago. And it was really born out of the need whereby organizations had these really large workforces, but the environments in which these people were working were quite different. They were low bandwidth. They were often in offline scenarios, and the products that we had at that specific time couldn't address the requirements of those users. And as we go deeper through it, you'll start seeing some of the scenarios and you'll go, oh my gosh, those scenarios actually resonate here in the US as well. So it started in emerging markets. We've been in 28 markets up until last month, and we are now expanding globally. So I'm really hoping that you're excited about some of the things that you see next. So this is, I guess, the key summary slide of what Microsoft Kaizala is, and we really hedge it around 3 key pillars. And the first pillar is really around providing secure work management and messaging as well. Now, when we think about some of the apps that people are using out in the workplace, predominantly it's chat-based apps. However, when we think about people getting work done, that is where the work management element comes in. And with Kaizala, we have what we call our action cards. And when we take you through the demo, you're going to get to test out some of these action cards and see them come to life. And we have this concept of out-of-the-box action cards. And that could be for things like surveys, polls, training, and so many more. You'll see when you, hopefully you've downloaded the app. And that's really important in terms of engaging either those workers or the external constituents that you might be working with, be it your vendors or your partners or suppliers or whatever. And the really cool thing about Kaizala is it's part of Office 365. So when we think about the security, when we think about the compliance, all of that comes with Microsoft Kaizala, as you would expect with any of the other Office 365 services. Lastly, when we think about that secure work management, we know that your organization's data is moving up and down. It could be really sensitive data as well. And data ownership is a key element that we keep hearing from people in terms of, hey, my risk profile of people using consumer apps in my organization really sits around these chat consumer apps where I don't own my data at the end of the day. Well, with Kaizala, you do own your data. You own your data for the groups that you manage that are aligned with your tenant, as well as any of the external people that are using or part of that group. You own all of that data and get to manage it. The second pillar is probably our most innovative pillar, and that's what we call our open directory model. And what makes it so unique is this is where phone number-based identity and phone number authentication comes into play. So if we think back, and I'll show you the next slide about how we traditionally have worked, where we all align to an AAD environment, this is not the case. This is a completely new model where we have a directory which is phone number authentication and phone number based, which is really, really cool. So when we think about that open directory, there are kind of those three key components that align with it. The first is the authentication method. The second is around the flexible group types. So when we think about communicating with people, there's different types of communication that we want to have with different groups of people. It's not the same one-to-one or one-to-few or one-to-many chats that we want to have. Sometimes we want to be able to mimic what our organizational hierarchy looks like. Or sometimes we want to be able to go, hey, well actually I run a set of suppliers that cross multiple geographies. So I want a north group, I want a south group, and you can see I'm directionally challenged. So you want to be able to have the flexibility to set those groups up in a way that is meaningful to your business. So Kaizala enables that, and Patrick's going to take you through the group type in a lot more detail. The last one is the size. Now, with Kaizala, one of the things we've really focused on is large groups, being able to communicate with citizens, as an example. So when we think about that, we have to be able to enable millions of people to belong to a group. And that we can say we successfully have tested it up to 3 million people, which is a very, very cool scenario. Okay, the last pillar is where we kind of bring it all together and where we're digitizing those business processes. So I spoke about the out-of-the-box action cards. There's also the concept of being able to customize action cards. So we have some scenarios whereby organizations, and you'll see it in the customer video that I have coming up, they have a sales force that travels to really remote parts of countries. They want to be able to give them an action card whereby they can capture customer information. They might be capturing sales orders as well. And they need to make sure that they can integrate that into the back-end line of business system. It might be CRM, it might be SharePoint, it might be an ERP application as well. So all of these things are possible with connectors and with Flow. Then the last one is, hey, it's really great to have people, submitting all this information, but how do you make it meaningful? And through Power BI and the integration with Power BI, there's some fantastic real-time reporting capabilities where you can actually go, hey, I've done a survey. And I'll give you an example. In India, one of the city councils, they've got something that they call their happiness index. They want to know how happy the citizens are within that particular geolocation. So they can very quickly get a pulse on, hey, what's the feel like within that particular area? Is there any unrest? And they can do that all through an action card by pushing out a question or a poll or something like that. So it's instantaneous results that you can see. So I'm going to take a step back here. I've kind of given you the high-level view of Kaizala. I'm now going to take you into what does an organization look like. So this would probably be familiar to everyone where, hey, there's a bunch of information workers, I'm an information worker, and I'm sure many of you in the room are information workers. And we tend to work in really structured environments. We use services like Azure Active Directory, we use services like Microsoft Teams to collaborate and really get the job done well. And typically, we're working with people inside of our organization's directory. But we all know that today, that's not how work only gets done. We know that we need to be extending that work outside of our organization. And the lines are really starting to blur in terms of how this work is getting done and how we're communicating with one another. So this is typically what we're seeing in terms of how our organizations are communicating. On the far side, we've got those workers or those people that sit outside of our organization's directory. And I'm going to say outside of your organization's directory many times in the session, so hopefully that's one of the key things you take away with you. But you can see there's a whole bunch of people. It could be, as I mentioned, vendors, suppliers, partners, customers, volunteers, citizens, etc. But where I want to talk about is that first line worker piece just for a minute. So I think we're all very familiar with who that first line worker is. These are people that are typically, when your customers come to, your business, or they're the first person to represent your brand out to the marketplace. Typically what we see is these are people that might need specific IT oversight when we think about, it could be advanced scheduling. It could be about priority notifications. So we see different types of IT oversight required for these types of workers. And I think you've heard Microsoft talk quite a lot around how we go about addressing this first line worker space. What we've noticed though is while we've got a really good handle of those first line workers that sit within your organization's directory, we've learned that there's this whole other first line workforce who are mobile only, mobile first workers. And these might be workers where an organization has, let me take a couple of examples of real customer scenarios. It could be courier drivers where you do not want to provide them with any Office 365 accounts or any email addresses. They don't require that to get the job done. But from an inclusion perspective, from being able to communicate with them, you still need to be able to be in touch with them. And they are capturing data that's important for your organization. It could be people sitting in the drive-thru at McDonald's that are taking orders. These are, highly impermanent workers that are typically changing all the time. So that's really, I guess, another type of worker that we've seen emerge, which is really, really interesting. So I'm going to take you through to the next slide because at this point I often get a question going, okay, this is really cool. I'm loving what I'm hearing about Microsoft Kaizala and the scenarios that it can address, but how do I think about Microsoft Teams and how do I think about Microsoft Kaizala? So let me help you a little bit with that. And this is, I guess, feedback that we've heard from our customers and from our partners. So when we look at the Microsoft Teams side, I think we've all heard that Microsoft Teams is the hub for teamwork. This is where people are coming together to collaborate, be it on documents. So we think about that Office 365 app element. When we think about chat, when we think about meetings, that really deep form of collaboration, that's where we see people coming together. And when we think about how these people are coming in terms of device, it's a range of devices. It could be laptop, it could be desktop, it could be mobile, it could be iPad. It's just a myriad of devices. And then if I double click on that and we think about the different types of workers, we spoke about that IW worker, but they're those first line workers as well that we spoke about. And we've built some really cool vertical-based solutions for those first line workers around, when we think about some of the healthcare requirements around patient care and management, when we think about priority notifications, when you're in a hospital and something's happened to your patient, you need that priority notification to make a decision pretty quickly. So these are some of the key differences, and all of those scenarios require that advanced IT oversight and overhead to look after those users in an appropriate manner. We also know with Teams that there is guest access for people coming in externally, but typically those users that are coming in externally, they kind of look similar to how we are in terms of the information worker. They're coming in from an AAD environment. They're collaborating on a similar document. And when we think about the group sizes, we're not talking about thousands of people. We're talking about project-based work or something similar along those lines. However, when we look at Kaizala, the scenarios that we're seeing, again, comes down to that phone number-based identity, really being able to manage the users who are mobile only and mobile first users. And that's really, really important. Being able to manage those tasks, the workflow with those users, being able to collect meaningful information from the field, from your customers, from your partners, and being able to stay connected with stakeholders whilst they're offline. And as I mentioned, you'll see a scenario where we talk about M-Copa out of Kenya. They're one of our customers who they sell solar power in very remote parts of Kenya. So they are traveling, the sellers are capturing information, and they need to be able to do that offline. The other thing they need to be able to do offline is retrieve documentation. So Philippine Airlines, the video you saw earlier, one of the reasons they chose Kaizala is their crew, when they're up in the air, they need to be able to retrieve documents. They need to be able to retrieve who's on the plane in terms of the manifest, the people on the plane. So having that ability and capability is really, really important. And while in low latency environments as well, is super critical. The other thing, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, is that high turnover. We know that in some of these scenarios and some of these workforces, it could be seasonal workers picking kiwi fruit or strawberries or whatever. We don't want to be paying for licensing for them for a full year when they're only with your business for 4 months of the year. However, we still want to make sure that we're keeping them up to date, we're keeping connected with them, and we're managing all our workflow and sales processes or whatever other processes you need to be doing. And then the other thing is, I'm hoping you've all downloaded it and seen how quick and simple it is, and it's very intuitive to use. Just lastly, you can see underpinning at the bottom there, there's kind of 4 key elements that comes with both Microsoft Teams as well as Microsoft Kaizala. And that's, they both integrated with Microsoft 365, and with that you would have the security, the compliance that you would expect with any of the Microsoft 365 services. I've already spoken about the extensibility, and that applies to both products as well. And then lastly, it's streamlined for deployment, for administration, and for reporting. So I'm just going to bring you back to the Venn diagram, to where we started, really with the information worker on the one side, the first line workers kind of in that middle bit, and then the external networks, just to help you frame in terms of how we're really thinking about the two products, and how we're seeing the unique requirements coming from what our customers and partners are telling us. Now, what you can see quite clearly here is in that middle piece, there are elements of overlap. And we're very aware that, when we think about the calling, when we think about the integration, we are very mindful that exists today. And I'm sure you're probably all sitting here going, hey, I'm loving what I'm hearing about Microsoft Kaizala, but I love Microsoft Teams. So how do I go out and position 2 discrete apps to my customers, back to my business, to partners, or whatever? So I'm sure you're thinking, to have a single unified solution would really be ideal. And what I'm really happy to say is we've taken the feedback, and as part of our vision is we are actually going to be bringing it all together into a unified solution. So when we think about the key elements, thank you, Louise. When we think about those key elements that make Kaizala so unique around that open directory, that phone number-based identity, when we think about those flexible group types, and when we think about the scale that we can be done with Kaizala, those are the elements that we're going to be bringing into Teams over time. So when I think about the timeline, you're probably going, hey, awesome, cool, when can we get the single app? Well, it's going to take a little bit of time. So, from an engineering standpoint, we want to make sure that from an experience for all of our users out there, it doesn't feel as though they've got to grind to get to Teams to get that experience. So it's going to happen in a phased manner, and it'll take between 12 to 18 months to get everyone there. Now, does that mean to say that everything's going to take 12 to 18 months? No, the experiences will be phased, and we're hoping that it feels more like an upgrade to you at the end of the day in terms of your experience. So you'll start seeing some of these new features showing up in Teams over time. However, in the interim, we are still continuing to sell Microsoft Kaizala as a standalone app. So I would say, don't be afraid if you see this as a solution for your organization or for any of your customers or partners in terms of you wanting to engage with them, please go ahead and do that. In terms of timelines and communication, we'll be sending out a really good formal communication within the next month, talking about what that migration and upgrade experience will look like, along with some of the roadmap timelines, etc., so you can have a little bit more information around that. So with that, I can't tell you how excited I am about the opportunity that, coming together in a single unified solution represents for us. I'm hoping that as we continue through today, you're going to see the new scenarios unfold that you haven't necessarily thought of in terms of even your own businesses and how you communicate with people, or even how you might think about helping your customers at the end of the day. So to give you a little bit of a deeper feel, I'm going to hand over to Patrick now to take us through a demo.
Thank you, Issa.
Are you going mobile first?
Let's switch to the mobile. So this is an iPhone, but it works exactly the same on Android, of course. How many of you have already downloaded the app? Quite many of you. So let's go to the app. This is the typical first screen you have on Kaizala. It's a chat-based application, so everything is on chat. You have several types of chats available. First, you can see here a typical one-to-one chat with Ether. We can see on the top another type of chat, which is with someone from my company. And you can see a small icon, Office 365 icon, saying that this chat is, this people is joined to my corporate identity and my corporate Azure ID. And so we are on Kaizala, but we are also taking all the benefits of using Office 365 as a whole package. I have also an interesting chat, which is only with me, so it's not with anybody else. It can be used to put some notes, to make some tests with, for example, poll and things like that. So very interesting to have it on your top list of chats. But for this session, we have created a group chat called SharePoint Conference 2019. So there are several ways to join such a group. So for example, I can add directly participant if I already know their phone number, for example. I can also use a join people way. So if you want, you can use this, this link, but it's not really easy to use, to type it. But if I, for example, I can send it to you in an email or things like that. Most interestingly and easy for you, it's a QR code. So you can directly join the group, taking the picture of the QR code. On iPhone, it's automatically opens the browser and you can get directly through the group. I'm not sure how it works on Android, but there is, of course, a way to manage a QR code on Android, of course. And last but not least, you can propose some code. But that's not all. I can also make this group discoverable in a small or a larger area. So, for example, here is our current location. And I can make this group discoverable in a range of several, so I have the choice, 100 meters, 1 kilometer, or 10 kilometers. Let's choose 1 kilometer. And I can make it discoverable, for example, for 1 hour. And as soon as I go to this option, you will be able to join the group. So what should you do? If you are on Kaizala, main screen, on the bottom right, you have a discover button. And then you have this menu. And for you, this is the easy way. You have just to go to nearby groups. And then you should be able to see the SharePoint conference group and open it for me, but join for you this way. So I can see that most of you are joining. That's cool, super cool. So that's very interesting interaction for people you want to embark on an open directory as explained by Ether. So as you can see, it's very easy for everybody to understand the chat interface. But what I want to show you is that much more than the chat that you can do with Kaizala.
Can I add just one thing?
Yeah, sure.
So the join the nearby groups is a really, really cool function. So think about running a customer event and wanting to get immediate feedback from, hey, is the coffee cool? How do you think, what do you think of the food? What do you think of the session? You can get immediate feedback, and you can get people to join a group right here, right now, as you all have done. And as you've noticed, it's a pretty quick process to go through and join. You can use it for event management. Think about, I don't know, going to watch a baseball game, for, getting the fanfare up and running. It's super, super simple and really easy to do.
Yeah, very cool and very easy for anybody to understand and to join. Thank you, super cool. So what can we do above chat? There are by default a list of several actions I can use in my chat. For example, I can publish some information like announcement. A job is something like I give some task to my people in the group, so it's very useful in a office, in a job environment. We have meeting information, things like that. But I want to show you the photo with location, which I think is also a very powerful feature. So let's take, for example, a picture of this part of the room. Here I can, for example, say to my boss, for example, I am here if I am at a specific customer site, for example. And then I publish this information on the group with tag in the direct message, the current location. And so my team can be sure that I am at the correct place with, for example, the customer expected and things like that.
Yeah, and sorry, Patrick, I hope you don't mind me jumping in. So some of the scenarios that we've seen customers use this for is couriers, when they're delivering a parcel, being able to take a photo, tag the location to ensure that it actually has been delivered at the right place. Another place where we see it is retail people wanting to make sure that when their staff are checking in, they're actually at work and they're not getting a mate to check their card in and do the little punch card thing. So these are scenarios that we're seeing unfold. And the last one where we've had a lot of great feedback is when people are doing stock takes. That's always quite hard, and because organizations and particularly retailers have found that, man, we've got like 500 of the same thing. How does that keep happening? Is someone not counting correctly? They're sitting in the coffee shop doing the stock take. So now they can actually take a photo, location tagging, done the stock take, sign the sheet and everything that needs to be done. So that photo location, while it seems, kind of easy and it doesn't seem to be that wow, the way people are using it and tying it with the action cards is actually quite meaningful to their businesses.
Here is other interesting cards. So for example, we have a survey. So it's very easy to create a survey from the action card, but we have already created one on the top of the group. You should be able to find it here, this one, if you want to respond to the Kaizala survey. I have already 5 responses. I can see who responded to the survey, and I can go to each answer. But we will see that in the admin part, we can have a more wider view and a more interesting view of all the survey results. We can also go there with a link, but we will see that in a few minutes, how we can see the result of the survey. So this is another very interesting cool action card we can use. And on the right line, on my action line, you can see that I have introduced a dedicated customized action with the logo of my company, for example, and with a specific form asking some specific question dedicated to the people in the group. This is also a very powerful and easy way to manage specific action and to put them in the group and to ask for interaction with the people. Let me finish the quick demo with a quick poll. So I have the survey, which is a list of many questions, but you can also ask only one question in a quick poll. And this is what I want to show you.
So just while Patrick is setting up the quick poll, I'm sure everyone was following along, but just in case you weren't, when you go into the app and you see the little paperclip at the bottom and you touch on the paperclip, you'll see it brings up all those action cards. Now what you're seeing is the out-of-the-box action cards that I spoke about earlier, and then as Patrick mentioned, there's a single customized card which his organization has built and has dropped in here to make available to the group today. So as we think about the group type that Patrick has set up, you will notice that it's got a little orange office logo attached to it. So he's actually set up an organizational group that's aligned with his Office 365 tenant, which means this is a work-based group. So any of the information that's collected through this group, because it's aligned with his Office 365 tenant, will be owned and managed by his organization. So if all the polls, surveys, etc., he will be able to get a view of that on the admin dashboard, which he will show you as we go a little further into the demo.
I have a quick problem with some pictures.
Why don't I do that and you move on to the next one and I'll get the poll set up.
Just to show you the result, some people want to play game in the group, and just to show you the result of the quick survey, it can be like that. So it's very easy to create some question about that. Let's switch to the admin part. So on your PC, okay. Oh, maybe it's not.
Okay, so you should all have got the poll that I just posted now. As you can see, I did that right here, right now, and it was super quick, super simple, and we'll start seeing the results coming in. And Patrick is just signing into the administration dashboard, so he can take you through how to set up groups, but also show you how some of the analytics get done through the dashboard. Let me help you here.
Okay, should be there. So this is the main view you get connecting to the Kaizala admin center. So it's exactly as all other Office 365 products. You get an admin center you can reach from the admin part of Office 365. So you have a list of all your groups. You can create a groups from Office 365 groups. So this is an interesting connection between Office 365 already well-known groups and Kaizala groups. And you have some quick links below. Let's have a look on groups. So groups are listed here in two ways. I have first the group connected to my organization. And as we have said, a group connected to my organization are I come with more capabilities to act and interact with the group. And I have also a list of private group. The most interesting thing I can do with a private group is that I can promote them to organization group. This is what we can do some interaction with, for example, the SPC conference group. We can see on the little icon here that we have standard groups, but you have also groups which are part of a hierarchy. So this is a set of groups. For example, all my demo groups are connected all together in hierarchy structure I can display here. So here I have a group I created, a demo group I have created for one customer and another one for SharePoint Saturday in Doha. I want to incorporate the SharePoint conference group we have just created in this hierarchy. So here is the list of all the users, all the already member of the groups. We can see here that we have the phone number of the people, and at some point we can connect them to Office 365 identity, but it's not by default, of course, the case. So in all demo group, I can add subgroups. For example, here I want to add the SharePoint conference to this hierarchy, and this is a success. So right now, I can see the whole structure, sorry, this way. So I have just, in a few clicks, added a group to a hierarchy of a more complex group, which is very interesting if we think to map an organization hierarchy. Second part is the directory, so the people. Here I have my employee. So these are people that have, are already known in my Office 365 tenant. And there are other people. So it can be used to reflect some identity change. And for example, if someone is changing his phone number, you can manage this directly in this part of the center, admin center. For example, I know that this guy, Christophe, is from my company, but is not registered or connected to his Office 365 identity. Yes, one question? By default, all the groups are read-write. So.
Yes, so a question also came on around what's the advantage of having hierarchical groups. So you can actually manage the information flow. So if we think about mimicking your organization, if the MD sends out a communication to the entire org, you don't want everyone to be able to have chatter going up and down, back and forward. So you can actually limit in terms of the responses, that responses are only visible to yourself, or you can make them visible to anyone. So there are controls around the ability that you make available to other people. Some of the things that are, and it's not on the roadmap slide that we will show, but things that are being discussed for roadmap is moderation. So when we think about the government to citizens model, you know, we don't want unrest to be caused because of a chat group that has just blown up completely. There needs to be moderation in those kinds of scenarios. So those are things that will be coming on the roadmap too.
This is typically urban spoke group. You have a small different icon saying in a way describe it. Just to finish about user. So I was with one guy which is right now outside my company. I want to move it to employees, and then is now part of the standard member of my company, and I can apply, for example, and map to him his Office 365 license and things like that. Let's go to analytics. The analytics part of the admin center is quite rich. So let's have a quick view on adoption report, for example. It will give you an idea of the total number of users you get in Kaizala and how many have already installed the app and things like that. We have here the biggest group with 29 people inside it, so that's cool. We can also have a view on what action people are really doing, so this is called usage trends. It may take some second to refresh, but right now I have a view on how many survey response I get, how many text message, how many video files, for example, I can get, and I can filter. It's Power BI, so I can filter on almost everything, like a group, like a type of chat, like data range and things like that. And last but not least, we can, for example, have a view on the survey. So we have created a survey a few minutes ago. So 26 people have already responded to the survey. And I can get some details by group and things like that. And if I want to go to the detailed survey report, I can get, of course, some detailed view of the answer. Okay. Select survey, Kaizala survey. Here is a sample of the answer we get for the first question, which feature are the most exciting for you, and Open Directory gets the most number of answers. Here it is.
Thanks, Patrick. What do you guys think? Right, so we're going to jump ahead. Do you want to go through the group types in a little bit more detail? That's one. Maybe. Yes, I'm seeing nods. Let's do that. So Patrick, do you want to go ahead?
So these are basically the 4 types of groups you can get. First one is a simple chat, one-to-one. Second one is very similar to what you have in Teams. That's flat group. You are in or you are outside. And that's very interesting to think that they want to integrate Teams with Kaizala. So we can imagine, that's not a Microsoft statement, that's my wish, that we could create the group on the side, on the right side, in Teams as well. So we can imagine hierarchies of groups for, as we said, typical example is in an organization, you want to have a C-level group for exchange between the C-level people, and below you have the typical division of the organization, like sales, like technical stuff and things like that. And everybody will be able to connect with the direction, but the direction, for example, the top of the hierarchy will not bothered by any discussion on the below level. And Up and Spoke is more dedicated for a type of usage when you want to communicate with a big number of people, and you don't want that. So you define a group with inside the big circle. You put, for example, some people in the company willing to answer a question to customers and things like that. And outside, people can connect to this group of people, ask questions, and they. By the way, they will not be able to speak or exchange together, but they will have great exchange with the circle in the middle. So that's very interesting in terms of usage and of capabilities. You can think about it. If we already have that in Kaizala, and maybe we'll have something similar in Teams. So that's great stuff.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Patrick. So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to show you some of the, I guess, the customer industries where we're seeing a lot of success and where we're seeing the typical requests coming from. To better explain this and give you the actual scenarios, I've got a short video, so let me play that. Okay, it does not want to play.
This is Microsoft Kaizala, a mobile chat app for work available with Microsoft Office 365. With a simple-to-use chat interface, you can connect and coordinate across and outside of your organization, from first-line workers to vendors, suppliers, and customers. Kaizala is fast to implement and easy to use, and it's helping organizations do amazing things. In the healthcare industry, for example, hospitals use Kaizala to work more efficiently, support a patient-first experience, and bring medical care to remote communities. Narayana Health made a Kaizala-based app that streamlines and secures communication between doctors and patients. Apollo Hospitals uses the app to improve its telehealth services and keep lines of communication open with field staff. with help from a Microsoft technology partner. Alembic Pharmaceuticals uses Kaizala to securely and consistently manage employee chat data, gaining new visibility and valuable insights to drive healthy, industry-compliant decisions. Kaizala is also reshaping industries beyond healthcare, from manufacturing to retail to energy to public sector and more. Organizations use Kaizala to bring together geographically diverse workforces. At M-Kopa Solar in Kenya, the app empowers employee mobility, making it easy for corporate headquarters and independent field sales managers to send updates and stay accountable to one another. And because the app's interface is so intuitive, the company's technology newcomers can pick it up and engage right away. Officials at the government of Andhra Pradesh in India use the app to set new benchmarks in operational efficiency and citizen satisfaction. Now, local citizens across 13 districts can share feedback digitally, empowering the government to serve its communities better than ever. See what amazing things you can do. Download Microsoft Kaizala on the App Store or Google Play and access Kaizala Pro with Microsoft Office 365.
So you can see in that scenario, or in that video, it covered off a couple of the key scenarios that you're seeing over there. Now, I know that the videos that you saw were of customers from emerging markets only. However, what I want to make sure that you take away is this product is not only emerging market product only. Based on the feedback that we've received from, customers in Germany, customers in Hong Kong, even in the US, they want it. And that's why we've actually expanded this product globally. And we made that announcement in April. So one of the scenarios that wasn't covered here was the training and onboarding. And I just want to spend just a minute or two on that. And we've received a lot of great feedback, particularly in the retail space, around how important training and onboarding is. And one of the things you might have noticed when you downloaded the app is there's persistent chat. We had created some, just some casual chatter between Patrick and I before you joined the group. So you can see Patrick getting on the aeroplane, you can see him in LA, etc. Now you can imagine being a new employee to an organization and having to learn a whole lot of material or get onboarded. All that information is there, it's available for you straight away to go through that onboarding process. When we think about industries that have to adhere to certain health and safety regulations or OSH regulations, being able to acknowledge every individual has completed the training is really important. And with the training action card, that is something you can do. You can push the training out to all the individuals in your organization. You can track who has completed the training. So when you need to prove and validate that all your employees have in fact done the training and you are compliant, you can do that in a really simple way. No more signing in paper-based sheets. None of that needs to be done anymore. The other thing is if people are not taking the training, you can push prompts directly to those people. So there's lots of different scenarios that are really relevant across all different market types. So you're probably thinking, okay, cool, you've told me about the product, now tell me, how do I actually get it? So let's talk about that a little bit more. So you all downloaded the free app today. And as I mentioned to you, you were part of an organizational group, Patrick's organization. And you were interacting, you were being able to gain access to the action cards, the questions we were asking. So that is the free app that's available in the store worldwide today that anyone can go download. Then we have what's called Kaizala Pro. So the Kaizala Pro has additional features like the admin console that we spoke and showed you earlier, and it's got some additional security features that are made available to it as well around creating those customized cards, etc. That doesn't exist within the free app. And that will be available in all of the Office 365 suites and Microsoft 365 suites that you can see up behind me there. Then lastly, you can actually buy the Kaizala Pro as a standalone SKU. So there are scenarios where organizations say, hey, my employees still don't need an Office 365 account, they don't need email, they don't need any of the other services that come with it, but I want them to have the capability to have Microsoft Kaizala but I want them to have additional security features, and that's where the standalone SKU comes into play. So let me just talk through a little bit more in terms of the timing. So for the Kaizala Pro to be showing up in the Office 365 and Microsoft 365 SKUs, for our existing customers with those services, that will start happening through the month of June. Towards the end of June, you will start seeing that show up in your admin console. And if you're an admin, you would have received that message sent a post to let you know that the service will be coming. If you are a customer that does not have Office 365 and is still on-prem, or you might you might use a different partner or vendor or whatever, you can actually purchase it off the price list from the 1st of June. So that's how you get it today. In terms of the roadmap, and my top of mind, like I spoke about now, is the global availability of the SKUs. The second is the integration into Teams. That's really, I guess, our biggest news that we landed today, as well as we landed it last month through a blog in the tech community. The other one is, as we think about expanding worldwide, having additional languages is critical. So today we have over 20 languages available in Kaizala. So if you're not native English speaking, go see if your home language is actually available in the app. What we're doing is we are expanding that to match all the Office 365 languages that are available, which is just over 40 languages. So as time goes by, you will see incremental languages being added consistently. At Mentions, that was probably one of the most common feature requests that has been asked, and you'll see that in the group I actually used at Mentions. So it's live, it's in the process of rolling out. And last is the web app. We know that people that are desk-bound, they want to be able to use a web app to quickly just type up a message. We've had the web app in preview for some months now, and it's going to be releasing pretty shortly.
We have a question. Would it be available in GCC?
It is not available in GCC today. Thank you for that call out. So as we think about action plan, maybe as you go home, things to consider is hopefully everyone's downloaded the app. Have a play with it. Think about the scenarios that are applicable to your business, how you're connecting in with your customers, your external networks. Think about your customer scenarios in terms of how you can support them, how you can help them start thinking about keeping their data secure and compliant and not leaking through consumer apps to other, in terms of data ownership. And think about those business processes that you're wanting to start to digitize. That's what I would ask of you. I'm going to play one more video. This is a video which is a partner-led video out of Indonesia, and what it shows is the integration that we were talking about earlier. It really demonstrates how you can integrate this really deeply to impact a very large audience.
Indonesia, with a population of 260 million people, 80% of which have no internet. For the millions of small businesses, that's a big hurdle to growing their business. But a startup company called Friends is changing the way business is done in emerging markets, and they're using Microsoft Kaizala to do it.
Micro businesses are the driver of the Indonesian economy, as they contribute 90% of public sector employment and a significant percentage of the GDP.
Friends platform is using Microsoft Kaizala to reach the 4 million retailers in Indonesia. Prior to our solution, all these processes were paper-based, where they not have any accounting of their business. They don't know how much money they're making. One of the reasons that we selected Microsoft Kaizala is its ability to scale and serve a full country.
Aplikasi di sini tuh simple banget. Kita bisa tahu stoknya masih ada atau enggak. Jadi nggak usah bolak-balik lagi nih. Balik lagi nggak kayak sistem dulu. Itu lebih cepat aja.
We're giving people the digital tools to expand their businesses even without mobile data.
Each business now has accounting. That's driving more ordering, and it's impacting the whole country.
Friends and Microsoft Kaizala track sales from the distributors, wholesalers, retail shops, all the way to the customer. It's giving power and data to these small businesses that they've never had before.
We combine technology with people. Whether they're accessing it through a smartphone or simple phone, they all have access to the same sophisticated technology platform.
Together, Friends and Microsoft are powering people in emerging markets. This is changing their life. We're impacting the world.
Microsoft Kaizala allows small businesses to do what was never before possible, empowering everyone to achieve more.
So that's one of my favorite videos, just really showing how, I guess, the expansion and the impact that this product truly can have. There's been a couple of additional questions that have come through on the chat. So just from a real-time translation perspective, that is not available today. But that likely will, as we think about the integration piece, will take place when Kaizala rolls into Teams. And then lastly, is the app going to go away after the Teams integration? The intention is to have a unified solution for our customers to use. But if we still have customers on Kaizala, we're not going to just discontinue the app. So the app will live as long as there are customers using it. But the intention is certainly to make sure everyone is having that unified experience. So behind me, you can see there's a bunch of resources up here. Please feel free to take a photo. We have already posted the presentation up to the portal, so you can download that. And Patrick and I will be around for questions if you've got any questions afterwards. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.